What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Pens and Tea. My name is Carrie, and today we're going to be talking about a mango flavored black tea and the Bexley sleeve filler fountain pen. So this tea, I'm going to butcher the name, but it is Maracuja mango. It's a black tea purchased from David's Tea. It says, looking for a sunny pick-me-up, this refreshing blend of sweet black tea, creamy mango, and exotic Maracuja. Natural mango is delicious tropical delight. The ingredients are black tea, mango, pineapple, sweet blackberry leaves, marigold flowers, passion fruit bits, which basically include a bunch of apricot pulp, passion fruit concentrate, natural mango, and passion fruit flavoring. You take about 1 to 2 teaspoons of this and you put it into your cup and you let it steep for about 4 to 7 minutes. You can also ice this one, which I have tried once, and it does give you different kind of directions on how to do that as well. Essentially, you just put a little bit more tea in and you let it steep for a little bit longer. That's the way I like it anyways. This is about 50 grams worth of tea, and it's gonna cost around $8. And if I open this guy up, it smells so good. That is kind of what it looks like. Well, one of the pineapple pieces fell out. But that's essentially what it looks like. It tastes quite good. It tastes pretty much like they say, mango and passion fruit. You don't, like I don't anyways, add any milk to it. Anything that is heavily fruit-based, I don't. It just seems to be a little weird to me to do it, but you're more than welcome to try. I do, when I have this hot, I do add some sugar to it because it can get bitter if you oversteep it, which, to be honest, I do sometimes because sometimes I'll forget about it. But when I ice it, I add nothing to it because when you ice it, it takes away any of the bitter, any of the kind of like things that you would want like to add sugar to. It just naturally, all the sweetened pineapple and things like that come out. I quite like it. It's not one of my everyday go-to teas. You know, it is, like I said, heavily fruit based. So it's not one that I go to every day, but every once in a while I do like to head that way. I would still recommend it, especially if you like fruit-based teas. But you still want like a black tea that gives you like a bit of a caffeine kick versus like actually getting the fruit infusion teas, which have nothing in them. So yeah. And then for the pen that I want to talk about today is this guy right here. So this is a pen by Bexley. I kind of think of it as like, these are like kind of like barbell weights and you're just like pumping iron because I'm a nerd. But this is a pen by Bexley. It's called the Sleeve Filler, and the finish is terracotta. There is one other finish, like more of like a camo finish rather than a terracotta, like kind of brown, red, things like that. It's definitely a unique looking fountain pen. And before you even ask, no, this is not a double-ended pen. But I'll get to that in a second. So this I picked up from VanNessPens.com for $175 US dollars, which if I look at my handy dandy notes, it's about 225 Canadian dollars. And I'm really glad I did, and I'll get into that in a moment. So just looking at this pen, it's not a huge pen. You know, if I compare it to this Sailor, which will also have an upcoming review, it's a little bit bigger, but it's a little bit thinner, specifically around the grip section, because the grip section is going to be closer to this size. But if I compare it to another pen that's going to be coming up for a review, you guys are just getting all kinds of spoilers today, which is the Trilogy Zero fountain pen, which is a crazily large fountain pen. Then it kind of dwarfs by comparison. So it's kind of average, middle of the road for height, but it is certainly thinner around here. So the cap has all gold trim. The clip is just fairly stiff, definitely usable though. Top here kind of comes to a little bit of a point, which is a little difficult to show you, but it definitely does come to a bit of a point. The cap band is just a solid gold band. There's nothing written on it. There's nothing really to it other than the fact that there's some ripples. There's some ripples in the band there. Then you kind of see here it's got like a little bit of an indent. This is the body of the pen. Yeah, there's really nothing I can say to it, because if you go to the other end, it almost looks like the cap. It's basically everything like the cap except without the clip. What's cool about this is that you can actually unscrew this and reveals dun, 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 the purpose behind the name. It is a sleeve filler. So what does that mean? It means it's a built-in converter. So much like a squeeze bladder, like a Pilot Con 20, for example, this is essentially built into the pen. So you would push, I'm not going to because there's ink in here, but you would push down this bar, which right behind it you can see the bladder. Push down that bar, it compresses the bladder, and when you let go, as the bladder opens back up, it sucks the ink up through the nib. And that's how essentially you fill the pen. And then you just screw it back down, and you're good to go. The cap twists off to reveal the threading here, which is very, very smooth, very smooth. The grip section is about the same size as the body. It does taper ever so slightly towards the very end here. And then you have the Bexley nib. This is a 18 karat fine nib. It's quite a small nib. So again, if I compare it to the Sailor, it is small. But that said, when it comes to the writing sample, it's small, but it's mighty. So the pen sits in my hand as such. It's a very light pen. There's really not much weight to it at all. It sits very comfortably in my hand. I suppose if you had very long hands, you could use this pen with the like end here kind of screwed out, and that would add some length to it. But then you are at risk for accidentally squeezing the bladder. The way that it's positioned is sort of like, the bladder is facing towards you. So I don't think, at least the way my nib and feed is set in correlation to this, I don't think you would accidentally squeeze it. But it's always a possibility if you leave it open. And if you want more length, then that's really the only way that you're going to get it. Because you can post it, but it only posts onto this little knob here. And while it does do that kind of securely, I could see it flying off if you're kind of like whipping the pen around. Plus, it just adds so much weight to the back that it really isn't that pleasant. So I would say that this is a pen that you can't post, even though technically you can. But I quite enjoy how this pen sits. I really do. The downside to having a sleeve filler is that it does take some time to clean out, because you can't just take out a piston or converter rather. You cannot unscrew like this nib housing because it's all one unit, and you can't, as far as I'm aware, you can't pull out the nib and feed either. So you literally are just going to be there like squeezing, releasing, squeezing, releasing, squeezing, releasing, squeezing, releasing into some water until you finally get it to run clear. Also, with any sack filler, this is a modern sack filler, so this isn't anywhere close to the issues that vintage sack fillers have, as far as the properties of ink that you want to be careful with. But I would still recommend that you are careful anyways. So any ink with like harsh properties, you would stay away from with this pen. I have actually a Waterman ink in here because they are like, Waterman's really, really good for having safe ink for sleeve fillers. With Pilot Con 20s or like external ones that I can take out, I'll put any ink in there. I really don't care, because if it fails on me, it's just a converter, who cares? But if this fails, then you have to send the whole pen away rather than just buying a new converter kind of thing. So that's really the only downside. You know, some people would find like this a downside, but I just think it's kind of cool. I like pens with weird things that make them stand out. But something else that makes it stand out is the way that it writes. So let's jump into that. All right, so just once again, we have the Bexley sleeve filler terracotta finish in a fine 18 karat gold nib. If you look back into my other Bexley video that I've done, which I'll leave in the iCard here, I think it's called the Bexley Bear, I have a medium nib, and this is the fine. To be honest, this fine is pretty wide, so this fine is pretty close to a medium already, especially because it is a wetter writer pen. I will say this pen, more so than others, when it's left just unused sitting, the feed does become quite saturated. So the first few lines you do will be more wet than if you were to continue writing. But as you can see, there's quite the pool. Normally I would smear it, but you can see it without even me doing that. I adore that. For me, like, the more wet noodle it can be, the better. I absolutely love wet pens. For others, maybe not so much, but I absolutely adore it. And this pen, guys, is so smooth. It feels wonderful across the page. It just responds so well, and it doesn't really matter whether you're writing slow, whether you're writing fast. It just goes. It just does what you want, and I love it. The grip section, which I didn't really mention, I do wish was a little bit wider. This is definitely as thin as I always want to go. This is probably bordering onto a Pilot Metropolitan grip section length and girth. So I do wish this was a little bit bigger, but I'm not mad at this nib at all. When I first looked at it, it was smaller than I was expecting, but what it lacks in size, it makes up for in performance, man. Holy smokes. So as far as line variation goes, you can squeeze out a little bit, but in no way, shape, or form is this like a flex nib or anything. Like, you can just get maybe an extra half a step up. So I wouldn't really recommend doing it too much. But this pen, guys, just, I love the way that this writes. The ink in here is Waterman Florida Blue, Serenity Blue, whichever you go by the old or new name. But as you can even see here, like, the word "the" is a little bit darker than all these squiggles. Because, like I said, it is heavily saturated when it first starts writing after being unused for a while. But as you can see, even after all this writing, it's still coming out really nice and wet, which, I just love. So 100% I would recommend this pen. I absolutely love it. I'm very pleasantly surprised by it. And absolutely, yes, if you get a chance, definitely get it. If you haven't had an experience with the Bexley before, this is my second experience, and I'm very happy both times. So guys, that's going to be about it for me today. If you like the video, hit that thumbs up button. If you really like the video but haven't yet done so already, please do hit that subscribe button. I make videos every Monday and Friday, and the occasional Q&A on Tuesday. Guys, as always, I'll see you next time. Bye.